Hey there everyone, welcome to Tales in Text. I'm your host Nisha and welcome to another book review. In today's episode, I'm going to be reviewing First There Was Woman and Other Folk Tales from the Dungri Garasiya Bhil Tribe. Now the Dungri Garasiya is a tribal community where whose members are currently present in current day Gujarat and Rajasthan. And this book by Zuban Publications is a collection and anthology of folktales from the Dungri Garasiya Bhil community. These folktales have been compiled by Marija Sres. Marija came to India as a missionary. She was sent to Gujarat, where her mission specifically was to work with the disenfranchised community of the Dungri Garasiya. This particular community, the Dungri Garasiya, are outside of the caste system, outside of the Hindu system in society. And the reason I mention this is because it is easy for us to believe that everyone or every person considered native to India might be Hindu, but that's not really the case. A lot of indigenous communities, a lot of indigenous tribal communities are not practicing Hindus and they fall outside the Savarna system, outside the caste system. And because they fall outside the Hindu and caste hegemonic societal structure, they are often disenfranchised from the majority community. They are considered to be at the bottom of the totem pole. They are disempowered. They are not given access to any resources, and oftentimes, although governments make laws protecting their status and giving them certain making reservations available for them, oftentimes they don't get access to any of these benefits, any of these resources, and they're completely, like I said, disenfranchised from the mainstream society, and therefore are, you find them living in abject poverty without access to medicine, education, electricity, health and sanitation, and absolutely everything. So Marija, when she came to India, her church sent her to Gujarat to work specifically with the Dungri Garasiya, and her personal mission was to empower the women and the girl children in this community. Now, Marija spent, I think, around 40 years with this community, and during this particular period of time, she learned absolutely everything about them. She experienced life as a member of the Dungri Garasiya Bhil Tribe, living with them, celebrating their joys, experiencing their tragedies and sorrows, and just living the everyday day-to-day lives of the Dungri Garasiya tribe, specifically the Dungri Garasiya women. And this intimate knowledge of this community allowed her to understand their cultural perspectives about the world. That allowed her to collect these incredible oral narratives which haven't been written down till date, and which she decided to publish as an anthology. And thank goodness for that, because this book, First There Was Women, is an incredible look at the enigmatic, very interesting and very obscure life of the Dungri Garasiya Bhil tribe. Just like a lot of other indigenous tribes in India, and I'm sure this is true of indigenous communities and indigenous tribes across the world, a lot of these narratives are either sidelined because of settler colonial attitudes, or they are forgotten, or they're completely erased from history for a variety of reasons. And because of this, we don't get to hear stories from tribal perspectives. If we look at, or if we consider folk tales and folklores from India, some of the first, tales that come to mind, or first anthologies that come to mind, are the Panchatantra, Jataka tales, Hitopadesha, your Vikram and Betal. So you get these names, or even Katha Sarita Sagara, for example. These are the names that come to mind for us, and that's because all of these narratives fall within the Savarna system. They are either derived from a very Hindu-centric society, or a society that was an offshoot of Hinduism, or that evolved or came out as a result of Hinduism. For example, the Jatakas are Buddhist folktales, and Buddhism evolved as a response to Hinduism. So they fall within that mainstream structure of society. And that is why these are the folktales that first come to mind when we use the term folktales of India. But there are thousands of tribes, thousands of communities, thousands of people living today who fall outside of the Hindu system, outside of the Savarna system, and who have extremely rich cultures, extremely beautiful systems and ways of life, and they have these incredibly rich stories, incredibly nuanced and complicated and just soulful folk tales that they have passed down through their past. And the Dungri Garasiya's set of folk tales, at least some of them, are there in this book, which is called First There Was a Woman and Other Stories. Now, like I mentioned, it has been compiled by Marija Sres. Now, some of the stories are direct translations of folktales shared by the members of this community with Marija, whereas others are Marija's own personal interpretations of the folktales. So you get a good look at both the perspective of the Dungri Garasiya tribe members and also of someone outside of this community who has joined this community as a newcomer and has sort of integrated themselves so seamlessly and beautifully. So there are 14 stories in this book, and every story is just so beautiful. It's really rich. It's both simple and complicated. We get to understand the origins of the spirituality of the Dungri Garasiya Bhil tribe, and we get to look at who they consider as their gods. One of the things that really stood out to me was how they have basically two versions or two parts to God. One is called Kudrat and the other is called Deva. Kudrat is the good God, the one who helps, the one who is positive, the one who is loving, whereas Deva is the one who wreaks havoc, the one who is like a trickster. And it really made me kind of consider how Kudrat, the meaning of the word Kudrat in multiple Indian languages translates to nature. Whereas Deva, the word, is a Sanskrit meaning or a Sanskrit version of the word God or deity, right? So it kind of made me think about the microcosm of the Dungri Garasiya Bhils within the larger microcosm of the Hindu society that was prevalent for millennia. How Kudrat, how nature was their main deity, and how the introduction of Devas, again, this is my theory, or my hypothesis rather, and there is no evidence to prove this is right or wrong. This is just my hypothesis and my understanding of the usage of the terms. But how Kudrat, nature, is something that they consider to be the all-powerful, the all-benevolent, the all-loving, the all-compassionate, and Deva to be the trickster, the one who trips them up, right? So it's really interesting to see this microcosm of the Dungri Garasiya within the larger macrocosm of a majorly Hindu India. Here, apart from unlearning about Kudrat and Deva, you also get introduced to the first man and first woman of the Dungri Garasiya. You get to find out about their, through the folk tales, about their food habits, about their intimate relationships with each other, about how societies are structured, about the wants and needs of the people, specifically the challenges that they face, and because of these challenges, the unique challenges of living in a place like Gujarat and Rajasthan, which is so dry and so hot, and where a lot of food items don't grow, where water is scarce. So considering all of these challenges, these folktales really focus on the needs of the people and the simple pleasures that they experience through life. So we look at both the simple day-to-day living of the people, but also the complicated emotional and physical toll that the environment and other people had on this community. Every folktale is just so beautifully explained. The language used in this book is very simple. Marija doesn't really come from an academic perspective. She is just penning down oral narratives that have been passed down, verbally from parent to child through the millennia. So these are tales that she heard sitting by the fireside, eating a rotla with the other women in the community. And they were sharing these stories and she decided to write them down. So you get the sense of talking to a friend, of these stories being, for example, narrated to you by a friend. And I think that these stories also make a really good narration as well. So if you were to read it out aloud to somebody else, to a friend or a family member, these stories would sound so cozy and so beautiful. One of the things that I really noticed in this is how a lot of these stories have a sort of erotic tinge to it. And I don't mean that there are explicit details of lovemaking. What I mean is that there's a sort of sensuality that sometimes stems from sex, but most times stems from the person's interaction with the with nature, with the environment. So there's a sort of embodiment within the spirituality as well. I really like this book. Some of the tales are really sad, some of the tales are really humorous, some of the tales are really thought-provoking, and overall it gives a really beautiful perspective of a tribe, of a community that many of us would have never heard of. Because up until the moment I found this book, I had no idea that the Dungri Garasiya Bhil Tribe actually existed. So I'm sure that this is the case for so many people in India and outside of India as well. So yeah, my suggestion, pick up this book if you like reading books about India, if you like reading folk tales, and in particular Indian folk tales. Don't just stick to the conventional Panchatantra or any of the others. Do, try to look for these tribal narratives, because these are narratives, like I said, that are often either ignored or forgotten or erased from history. And honestly speaking, if Marija hadn't penned these down or written down these folk tales, because as of now I'm not aware of any other books that have the Dungri Garasiya folk tales in written form, in published form, so I could be wrong, but I have not found that. If you know of another book that do contain these folk tales, please do let me know. But for the most part, there are many tribes in India whose folk tales and whose culture has not been recorded, and who, even if it's been recorded, it's not in English. And unfortunately, most of us today in India do feel more comfortable reading in English as opposed to other languages. So it is very likely that unless we really look for these books, unless we look for these narratives, that we will not find these kinds of books that easily on the mainstream market. So yeah, first there was Woman and Other Folktales by the Dungri Garasiya Bhil Tribe, compiled by Marija Sres, is an incredible book. It's a very small book. It is about 82 pages. That's it. It took me, I was reading it pretty slowly, and it took me just 3 days to finish this. And if you're a fast reader, I'm sure you can finish it in a single day. Or at the most, you might take just about a week to finish this. Even if you don't want to finish it in a hurry, you can read one folktale a day and just soak in the just the beauty of the Dungri Garasiya world. This book, as you can see, has got such a stunning cover page, and I really want to show you this. Every start of the chapter has this gorgeous illustration. So there are different illustrations. Let me see if I can find another one, like, or for example this one. So every chapter has a beautiful illustration, and I believe that these are illustrations that are very indigenous to the Dungri Garasiya Bhils. So it's a very visually appealing book as well. It's small, it's portable, and it's just rich with really lovely folk tales and folklore that you would really enjoy if you like folk tales, if you like reading books about India, and if you want to read about stories of the people of Gujarat and Rajasthan. So yeah, first there was Woman and Other Stories, folk tales from the Dungri Garasiya Bhil Tribe, compiled by Marija Sres. It's a thumbs up from me. Do take a read. It is from Zuban Publications. And have you read this book? Do let me know. Do you plan on picking it up? Let me know. And thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time on Tales in Text. Bye-bye.